I bought my first home when I was 19 years old. I was freshly married, I was still in college, and my husband was in his first year in the Air Force. And I don't regret buying a home that young, but I do regret how I bought it. And because I owned that house during the biggest appreciation years of my lifetime, and I basically broke even. And today I want to explain why, so you don't make the same mistakes I did. Now, if you're a first-time home buyer, or honestly, if you're buying any home emotionally, this video is for you, because mistakes aren't about money, they're about missing context. So just to set the scene a little bit, when we bought our first home, we thought we were doing the responsible thing. Rent was very expensive, we wanted stability, and I wanted something that felt mine. My mom hadn't owned a home in a long time. I was excited to customize something to finally stay put, and honestly, I felt confident, maybe a little too confident. The house looked great on paper, 2 stories plus a basement, had a detached garage, it backed up to a river, and it had been fully renovated after a major flood. It was truly the biggest house we could afford, and it was in a very small town in North Dakota. What I didn't realize at the time was it was on what locals considered a very busy main arterial road, and it had flood history stigma. And we were buying in a very distorted market. And to me, it just felt normal. We were new to town. And that was my first big mistake. Mistake number 1 was definitely not understanding the local economy. The town had just experienced a catastrophic 100-year flood, and that flood destroyed a lot of housing, drove rental prices through the roof, created extremely low inventory, and so we thought rent is expensive, buying will save us money. And what we didn't understand was sales prices were inflated too, and the demand was extremely temporary. And we were buying at a premium caused by a one-time event. We didn't ask, is this a normal market or is this an anomaly? If we had slowed down and asked that one question, we could have had the answer in 20 minutes. We just didn't know how to ask. So mistake number 2 was thinking, if I can afford the payment, that equals it's a good buy. We actually did do one thing right. We bought well below what we were approved for. But here's the part I didn't understand yet. Affording the payment doesn't mean that you're making a good financial decision. Because the home had been gutted after the flood, property taxes were artificially low. The next year, the county reassessed, and our payment jumped $300 to $400 a month in 1 year. Luckily, we could afford it because we had bought well below our means, but we didn't expect it. And for years, I didn't even really fully understand what happened. And this is the same thing I warn buyers about now with new construction homes, major renovations, or flip properties. Our third major mistake was buying too much house for our real life. We bought the most house we could afford because that's what most people tell you to do. What no one tells you is more house means more cleaning, more maintenance, more mental load. This house had 3 levels, which means I was carrying laundry up and downstairs all the time. It was big, so there was constant upkeep. And truthfully, we were busy. We were in college, we were working, we were training, and we were always busy. What we actually needed was a smaller home with less maintenance, and we needed more rest once we were at home. In the case of this home, the home actually suffered more than we did because we just didn't do a lot of the maintenance. And I just didn't realize yet that just because your body could do something, that doesn't mean that that should be what you build your life around. Mistake number 4 was ignoring our resale reality and what friction really means. At 19, I was not thinking about resale at all. Resale felt theoretical, like a future problem. But here's what I understand now. Not all homes appreciate the same, and not all homes are equally easy to sell. Our house had friction. And friction does not mean a house is bad. Friction means fewer buyers are willing to consider it. Buyers need some more convincing. Homes take longer to sell. You are competing on price instead of on demand. And in our case, that friction stacked up. We were on a busy arterial road. Again, I didn't know that this was busy because it was North Dakota, and to me, this road was not busy. But to everybody else in North Dakota, this was a busy road. It also had a flood history, even though it was fully renovated and had been flooded one time. It also had a smaller market with limited buyers to begin with. And later, the increased inventory once the post-flood shortage resolved meant, why would they choose our home? Now, individually, none of these things are deal breakers, but together, they narrowed our buyer pool significantly. And the reason that this mattered is we bought the house in 2012 and we sold it right before 2022. So here's the part that stings a little. We owned that home that entire time. And for most homeowners in the US, that decade was one of the strongest appreciation periods in modern history. People experienced massive equity growth, life-changing gains for a lot of families. Many people saw their home values double, hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, the ability to move up, invest, or reset financially. And we didn't. Not because we were irresponsible, not because we bought at the wrong time, but because we bought the wrong house in that market. We bought something with built-in friction, and friction limits appreciation. So while the market surged, our home barely moved, and we sold it 10 years later almost for about what we paid for it. And yes, it hurts a little knowing that during the biggest equity building years of my lifetime, I basically broke even. My fifth mistake was the fantasy of, we'll just keep it as a rental. We told ourselves that. We'll just keep it as a rental if we can't sell it. What we didn't think through was that North Dakota has some of the worst winters in the world. There's extreme weather, which means that there is maintenance frequency, risk exposure. That climate is brutal. Things break often and at the worst times. So the idea of just, hey, we'll keep it as a rental sounded good in theory. In reality, it was expensive and stressful. And the real issue, the biggest mistake we made of all, was that the process moved so fast that it felt like it happened to me, not like I was actively choosing every piece. And that's why, if there is one thing that I want you to take from this video, it's this: slow the process down. Not the transaction, the thinking. Now, I want to be really clear on what I mean by that. Slowing down does not mean missing opportunities. It does not mean dragging your feet. It does not mean losing out on homes. Because certainly, once you're in a transaction, speed really matters. What I'm talking about is slowing down before that. Slowing down on the prep, the questions, the analysis. Because when you do the work up front and take that slowly and intentionally, you can move fast, but with confidence. That's intentional speed. So here are 5 questions that I now ask buyers to answer often before we're even writing an offer. Is this market normal, or is it reacting to something temporary? How easy will this home be to sell later on? Does this home actually match how you actually live day to day? What costs are going to change after closing? And if nothing changed for 5 years, would this home still feel okay? If you can answer those confidently, then you're in a strong position. So this is why this matters to me now. This experience is why I lead with education. I don't want people to feel rushed or confused or like they're guessing. I want you to feel informed, empowered, confident. Your home matters because it's one piece of a much bigger financial and life puzzle. So if you're buying your first home or your next one, learn from my gray hairs. Slow the thinking down. Ask better questions. Make the decision on purpose, not out of pressure. And if this was helpful, like the video, share, subscribe, and drop a comment if you're buying soon. I'd love to know where you're at. I'll see you in the next one.